Anyway, we stopped on the your message to people about them if they see a veteran, what to do, etc.
Do you think that we can do something like that we can put out on social at 11, which is just like a moment of silence? You can capture both of us maybe side by side, but like when you do the video, do you have us both side by side in the feed? And then we both be quiet, or you can have us like kind of zoom down on the bottom. So we're kind of poking up, and then you can have like a picture of poppies or something. And then we just have a moment of silence. Do you want to do that?
We can try them all and then choose which one's best afterward.
Okay.
Why puppies though? Puppies like little dogs or puppies like flowers?
Poppies like flowers. Yeah, poppies.
Does it have any significance, cultural thing?
In World War I, in Flanders Fields, which is a famous poem, in World War I, when the soldiers were fighting, they fought in an area where there were tons of poppies everywhere. It came to signify World War I. And at the end of World War I, poppies were used to remember, at the time it was known as the Great War. No one could have guessed that in another 20, 25 years, they were going to have another world war, right? Yeah, that's where the poppies are from. I think, if I remember correctly, it was like in 1920 or something that they started with the plastic poppies that we all use. That's what it's all about. There's a famous Canadian who wrote In Flanders Fields. And while we're talking about that, I'm just going to look it up because I want to name him because he's a Canadian. John McCrae. His name is John McCrae, wrote In Flanders Fields. It's a beautiful poem. Have you ever read it?
I haven't, but I will. Actually, this is where I'm usually learning most of creative and writing stuff during our podcast. So, yeah.
I'll bomb you over the link to it later. Sorry, I'll send you over the link later. Bomb you over is not a great term to use when we're talking about Remembrance Day. So I'll send that over to you, but how about I read it?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is In Flanders Fields. It was written by a great Canadian man named John McCrae. And here we go. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Wow.
Yeah, he fought on the front lines. I believe I read he was a Canadian doctor. I know he's Canadian. And he wrote that while he was in the field. Yeah, it's become a huge poem here in Canada because he's Canadian. Of course, I can't say that enough. Not just that, it doesn't matter what conflict you're talking about. In Flanders Fields applies to them all, not because of the poppies, but because of the nature of war and that if the soldiers who don't make it through the war, who don't become veterans, they have passed on that torch to those who have. It's deep and it's beautiful. My father was a veteran. My father, he was a peacekeeper in Cyprus in the 70s, and he saw all sorts of horrific things. He carried them with him in his life. He had PTSD that wasn't diagnosed until I was in my teens. It wasn't until later in my life that my dad found peace. My dad, unfortunately, has passed away since then. He was a veteran. My grandfather was a veteran. Take the time to thank a veteran. Veterans have bled for you. Veterans have fought for you. And it's because of veterans that you have the choice of whether you can thank a veteran or not. They brought you your freedom, so thank a veteran. And if you are watching this and you are a veteran, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your sacrifice. I want to thank you for everything that you've done so that way I can be free.
Well said. Very well said. Okay, thank you for that, Ken. I know it was hard for you remembering about the experiences that you have with your veteran father, and you can relate his struggles and the struggles of the people who has veterans as family members too.
Yep, I was trying to join the Canadian Forces when I was in my 20s, and then my father made the suggestion that I don't. So I ended up not following down those footsteps, and it was because of the experiences my dad had. This was after he was diagnosed with PTSD. Just not good stuff.
I actually do not know how to handle my emotions when it comes to listening to people share about their stuff, share about their life experiences. So maybe this part, maybe we should end it on this part.
Why, do you have a different experience?
My father has PTSD due to the wars here that we had. We're not very close, and I did not actually grow up with him.
I have the same experience, Christine. When my dad died, I didn't really know him because we never really hung out. I remember after he died, I went hunting and I was devastated because I realized I never had gone hunting with my dad and I was never going to have the opportunity. And I was in my 30s. Like there was plenty of opportunity to do that stuff with my dad. And I don't hold it against my dad. I understand that he had PTSD. So you are not alone in that experience. And I have the same emotions, just guy emotions.
And this is why we love our kids. We
Yeah.
don't want to make the same mistakes that, we did with our fathers. So we spend a lot of time with our kids as much as we can, and we love them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. As much as my daughter will let me, she's fastly approaching the age where she doesn't want to hang out with me anymore.
He's becoming a teenager soon.
Not too soon. She's 10, so it's just around the corner.
She's gonna be having a lot of transformations in her life, and whether we like it or not, some will include us, some will not.
That's right. She's eventually going to take off from our nest and she's going to go on to make her own life. I just hope that when that happens, we have a relationship because my dad and I didn't. I know how you feel.
So the first things that you were doing with her before is reading books. So this what made you closer together, is that correct?
She mostly reads books with my wife. She
Oh.
she likes the way that mom tells a story because dad tells the story wrong because I like to do voices and I put my personality into it. So she gets angry at dad because dad doesn't really like mom. But yes, that story has definitely brought us close. One of the things we did when she was, I want to say like 2 or 3, there was a little app that we downloaded on my iPad and we created an animation just like with little stickers and little watches going. And it was a robot fighting a dinosaur that breathed fire. When the dinosaur walked in, she went, rawr, rawr, and then I would shoot, pew, pew, pew. And then she, of course, her dinosaur defeated the robot because that's what we do as parents. Let our kids win, right? So I let her win the fight. I think recently I found it somewhere and I showed it to her and she had all sorts of great memories from it. So we do a lot of things like that, play lots of games. A lot of my stories that I come up with that I have coming, like Dog McCracket, that was a story that we were talking about on the way to school.
Pretty excited on reading about Doc McCracken. What was the actual name? Can you repeat that one?
Dog McCracket.
McCracken. I just noticed that most of your creations were actually a lot of them involves the concept creation, etc. You thinking about that involves around you spending the time with your daughter.
I have stories in the back of my head that I want to get to that I had thought up before she was even born. So when I left high school in my late teens, early 20s, I wanted to write a book and become an author. That's why self-esteem is so important. I didn't do it until I was 40. 20 years went by. I don't think those were 20 wasted years. I lived a life. Living a life is one of the best ways to become a writer because you have experience to write about. But that said, I could have started writing right from the time I was in my 20s. That stage, if I would have started then, I would be an established author today. Or I would have been a 20-year-long failure. But either way, I would have been I would have been doing it. I would have been living my dream. But that said, everything happens for a reason. So I hold no regrets to what happened, other than to say that I would love to help another writer who's young find their confidence so they can write. Because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that anybody would want to read any of my stuff. And now that I've written 4 books, one English, one French translation, and I have a 5th book coming out. I've written scripts that have been broadcast on television. Now that I've reached this level of success, I realize people do want to read my stuff. People do care about what I say. And so if they care about what I say, they're going to care about what you say even more.
Words of wisdom coming from Kenny himself. Okay.
Or a
Thank you for
fool
that.
rambling. Or a fool rambling.
No, you actually had achieved success in this field. So if that's what you think will help those people who went through the same thing that you did, that will be a lot for them. That will help them a lot.
I think that it would be awesome if everyone wrote a book. Everyone's got a story to tell. Each and every one of us has a story. It's different than your story. Christine's different than my story. And different than both of our stories are different than the stories of you watching this right now. But we all have a story. And you know what? Somebody out there wants to hear it.
So let's hear it.
That's
Let's
right.
hear your stories. Let's read about them. Let other people hear or read the stories in your mind because we were born creative anyway. And let's just help others be creative by releasing it out there. So thank you so much, Ken. Do you have any words before we finish this session?
Yes.
So we discussed about our creative side, the books that we actually wanted to do, and then we want other people to commemorate about the veterans and thank them for what they have done for our communities for us to be able to have our freedom. So aside from that one, anything from our future things that you want to do?
Yeah, for sure. I would like to know what you want us to produce. Do you want us to bring in authors to talk to you about their stories? Do you want us to bring in certain people to come in, or do you just want us just to keep on just talking to each other? We are looking for ideas that you want to see. So please put it in the comments. That way we can produce something that you're going to enjoy. And for those who want to troll on us, put it in the comments too. Because every time you do, you just put us up higher in the algorithm and help nice people see us. So thank you, trolls. Thank you for commenting about this. And if you're not commenting, that's the biggest troll of all.
Well, for those who has ideas on their mind which they do not know how to make it come to life, let us help you with that and put them down in the comment section so that we, our team, Kenny Wilson, would be able to materialize them and bring them to life, like how you would want the world to see it.
That's right. Have a great night, everybody.
Have a great night, everyone. So, one story to change the world at a time.